All right, fantastic. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for this webinar for New Zealand employers. We are New Zealand Shores, an immigration consultancy based in Hamilton, Waikato, and we thought, considering the scale of the upcoming changes, it was important to give you all an update on what's to come and how you can prepare. My name's Fabian. I'm a licensed advisor at New Zealand Shores. Today we have Sarah and Charlotte. Would you guys please introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Fabian. I'm Sarah Crome and I'm a licensed advisor here at New Zealand Shores. Just a bit about New Zealand Shores. We have two offices, one in Hamilton and the other in Nelson, and have been in operation for over 10 years now. We work with all employers across New Zealand in an array of different industries. And likewise, our migrant clients, they come from all corners of the globe. Thanks, Charlotte.
Hi everyone, I am Charlotte. I am a licensed advisor with New Zealand Shores. I have been with the company for 7 years now, so basically part of the furniture. And yeah, like Sarah, work with clients all over the world and employers throughout New Zealand.
Awesome, thank you. I just have a comment here that the audio is echoing a little bit. I've done something, I hope that's better now. And also just a note, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, if you can please share these in the Q&A down below rather than the chat, so we can try and address as many as possible. Sweet, let's get started. I'll just share that PowerPoint here. Great. Now, first thing first, what is accreditation? Sarah, do you want to start the show?
Yeah, so accreditation is a process that you go through with Immigration New Zealand to become, if you like, certified or pre-approved to hire migrants, or in the case that you already have migrant workers working for you, it's about being able to keep them. It's about demonstrating to Immigration New Zealand that you are a sustainable and genuine employer with a genuine need to recruit from overseas, or like I said, actually keep your current staff that you've got already. As part of the process, you will need to demonstrate that you are in a sound financial position, have a good history of trading, good HR policies and workplace practices, and that you can show ongoing commitment to training and employing New Zealanders. So that's basically what it is in a nutshell.
Cool. So the topic of these webinars is that changes are coming up. When are these supposed to take place and what will the new accreditation scheme look like? Charlotte, over to you.
Yeah, so these changes have been discussed in immigration for well over a year. Our industry first became aware of them in 2019, so it has been on the cards for a while. It was supposed to come into effect last year, but was delayed, obviously, due to COVID, like a lot of things. So the new target for implementation is now July 2021. The overall idea of the new scheme is that any employer wanting to hire a migrant in any position will need to be accredited. The accreditation system will be different to what it looks like now, and it will also replace the current approval in principle system that immigration has, and it will replace labour hire accreditations. So immigration estimates that around 25,000 employers in New Zealand will need to become accredited under this new policy. Roughly 22,000 will need what they're calling standard accreditation, and at least 2,000 employers will be considered high volume or premium. And then on top of that, there will be about 50 to 100 labour hire employers that get a little bit more scrutiny than what your standard employer does, just because they're recruiting at such a high level.
So let's have a look at those three tiers, if you don't mind. Can you get into the specifics?
Yeah, absolutely. So the standard accreditation is for any employer wanting to hire basically 1 to 5 migrants. So even if you only hire one person from overseas, you will need to have that standard accreditation. The high volume or premium accreditation, that is for anyone wanting to hire 5 or more migrants. And then there's that high risk category, which is the likes of like we said, the labour hire, and they need basically, a little bit more scrutiny because they're hiring such a high volume. Under this new system, there will also be an employer check. So that's kind of the basis of this whole new shift that we're seeing. The requirements are largely around your company's financial sustainability and employment practices. So they're looking at things like HR, health and safety, your employment agreements, your financials, all of that kind of thing. And they're making sure that you are compliant with relevant laws and standards. So that's both employment law and immigration law. Under the new scheme, there will be accreditation for 12 months initially, and then renewal for up to 24 with auditing throughout that accreditation period. So that could mean that immigration jumps in anytime through that accreditation and say, hey, can you prove to us that you're actually doing what you say you're going to do, and you're ensuring that you're providing good health and safety to your employers and everyone's getting paid what they should, etc.
Yeah, and I think the main point of that auditing throughout the phase is to fast track renewal.
Hopefully, yeah, we don't really 100% know because we're still waiting on that policy, but yeah, I think you're probably right on that front, Fabian. So there will also be a job check, which to some degree looks a little bit similar to what the current labour market check does, but this will happen for each visa application as it already does. So it'll depend on the position offered, the industry that position's in, the location. You as an employer may or may not have to test the labour market depending on where you are and what your industry is. So you will potentially still need to prove that you can't find a New Zealander to fill that role. Then that need for the labour market check will partly also be determined by the salary you're offering a candidate, but also sector agreements. So a sector agreement is where some industries have determined an ongoing need basically for migrant employees because there's just not enough Kiwis available for that role. From what we know, industries such as aged care, hospitality, agriculture, potentially tourism, construction, but obviously we're still waiting to hear what that looks like. So those were supposed to be finalised already, but have also been delayed due to COVID. And then as a last step, there will also be the migrant worker check. So this is kind of exactly the same as what is already in place. Is the person qualified to do the role, either through work experience or qualifications? And then do they meet the standard health and character requirements? So yeah, there's nothing new in terms of the migrant worker check.
So thanks, Charlotte. That's the bulk of things for accreditation requirements. Now, around the same time, Immigration New Zealand is also going to undertake a complete overhaul of the main work visa categories. Sarah, can you tell us a bit more about these?
Yeah, so what we'll see with these changes is the merger of 6 work visa streams that we currently have at the moment into one big work visa, if you like. So any employer-specific visa, and when I say employer-specific, it means that someone has been able to apply for a visa based on a job offer being presented to them. So we're not talking about partnership visas or holiday visas or post-study visas, any employer-specific visa. So they're all going to be scrapped and replaced with one new generic work visa. It's a welcome change, in our opinion, to simplify the system, basically. So the work visas, they are going to be scrapping the Essential Skills Work Visa, the Essential Skills AIP, the Work to Resident visa streams being talent and long-term skill shortage, and Silver Fern Practical Experience and Silver Fern Job Search. The other changes are that the median wage, which is determined by Statistics New Zealand, is going to be increasing from $25.50 to $27, and they're pitching that for June of this year. For those of you not aware, last July, Immigration actually introduced this median wage to determine whether labour market checks are required or not, and also it determines the duration of the visa now as well. What we do know is that if you're going to be paid twice the median wage, so that brings us to about 122,000, that this will essentially be the new work to resident pathway that Immigration is still going to offer. And that means that no labour market checks are going to be required for that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Well, that sounds all very complex, but that's also what we're here for, to accompany companies moving forward to get things started. Sarah, what are the kind of things that we can do now if I wanted to look into becoming accredited?
Yep. So if someone was to approach us now and say, look, we want to become accredited, there's actually a lot that we can do now, even though policy is not yet in place. We have current accreditation as it currently stands. So we basically know what 80% of the requirements are going to be. So we can work together right now to start preparing an application. And we're encouraging that because, as Charlotte said, there's 25,000 employers potentially immigration have identified as going to be needing accreditation. So, you know, if you don't want to lose your existing staff, we are seeing a lot of shoulder tapping going on, given the borders are closed and, you know, unemployment's getting quite tight. If you don't want to be in that situation, then actually starting the process now, you know, is something you can consider. And it means that an application for accreditation can be pretty much submitted within a week or two of policy being released. So that's what we're recommending.
Cool. Thanks for that. So look, we saw that the key benefit of the current employer accreditation is the talent work visa, which gives the ability for workers to apply for residence after 2 years on the job. A lot of people are wondering what will happen of this. Well, with the information that we have at the moment, the work to residence pathway will remain available, but only to people who earn twice the median wage. So we'll just have to wait and see when policy is released. Another question we get a lot at the moment is, okay, I'm going to become accredited under the new scheme. So does that mean that anyone who's already on the talent visa will be able to apply for residence when the scheme is implemented, or are they going to lose that pathway to residence? We believe that as long as they obtain the initial work visa under the current accreditation process, ANZ will honour the ability to apply for residence from work, even after the new changes are implemented, because this kind of policy changes is rarely retroactive. We also have some employers, but particularly some workers, worried about potential changes to the skilled migrant resident category. None of these changes are going to affect this key residence pathway. They're only applicable to the work visas and to the company accreditation. The only change that we know of for skilled migrant that is coming is in line with the increase in the median wage from 25 currently to 27. Another question we get a lot is, what are the biggest challenges that I will face as a company? Sarah, what do you think these could be?
I think from what we know right now, it's perhaps going to be the grace period. Is immigration going to be providing employers enough time to actually obtain accreditation before they need it? And that is actually quite worrying. So we were of the understanding when immigration were first talking about compulsory accreditation that they would give a leeway of, 6 to 12 months to allow most employers to get together what they need, submit their application, and allow enough time for Immigration New Zealand to approve the accreditation before they're actually going to need it. So that's, I guess, what's worrying for most employers that we talk to now. And that's why we are urging those who know they're going to need accreditation, that don't want to lose their current staff, to actually start the process now, so we can do the groundwork. We can get 80% of the application to a point where we can submit once policy has been released. So you just want to make sure you're at the front of the queue. If immigration come back and say policy's open, in a month's time we've got processing times of upwards of 3 months, then from what we understand right now, there isn't going to be an interim visa available to any staff members that you have that are renewing their visa. So yeah, just hopefully that answers that one, Fabian.
Yeah, it does. So the advice is very much to contact us now. I think we've got our contact details on screen now, and then we'll talk with you about whether it's a good idea to start the process right now. Whether we're looking at becoming accredited under the current scheme or the future scheme.
Yeah, and look, just basically probably a 5-minute chat right now is going to be enough to determine if you are going to need accreditation, because as we've stated, it's only if you're employing employer-specific work visa holders, so essential skills, anyone that you've offered a job to and they've obtained a visa because of that. But yeah, 5 to 10 minute chat right now will determine A, are you actually going to need accreditation? And then B, will it be standard? Will it be premium? And we can start working together on documents that maybe you don't have yet that you're going to need. So yeah.
So in your experience, Charlotte, how long does the process of accreditation take?
So from what we've seen based on the current accreditation system is it can often take a few months for people to actually get their documentation ready and then a few months to process. So you're having to provide things, you know, your financials, evidence of who you've tried to recruit in the past, your need for migrants into the future, your HR policies, copies of employment agreements, all of that kind of documentation. And it's likely that as we move into this new accreditation system, that a lot of that documentation is actually going to be quite similar to what is already there or what's already required. So yeah, that stuff can take a little bit of time to make sure you've got it all. We check it and say, hey, great, everything's there, or no, we need X, Y, Z. And then, yeah, because of the high volume of applications which are going to be submitted when this policy comes into effect, you know, like Sarah said, 25,000, you could be facing processing times of 3 to 6 months potentially. So it's best to be 100% ready or even 80% ready so that when that new policy comes out, we can, you know, fill in the gaps and get that application submitted.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Charlotte. We had a question as well. Confusion regarding median wage. What is the median wage? Is that the minimum I should pay someone so they can get a visa? So median wage is going to be determined as the minimum salary threshold under policy, but it's not the same as minimum wage as we understand in larger employment terms. The minimum wage in New Zealand will actually become $20 per hour on the 1st of April, but the minimum salary threshold is determined by the median wage, set currently at $25.50 and to become 27 in July. We have a few questions in the Q&A there. One question from Avril. Will the new visas be associated to the accredited company as well? Any idea on that?
Yeah, that's as we understand it, isn't it?
Yeah, we do believe the new visas will have to be associated to the accredited company. So that's why they call employer-assisted visas. A migrant visa would show the occupation, the employer, and possibly the region or town they're meant to work in. That's not supposed to change. Another question from Johanna. What if I'm already accredited with an expiry of early 2022? Will this continue for us? I believe we had a chat with a relationship manager last week from INZ. Sarah, can you tell us a bit about this?
Yeah, so that's again another piece of policy that's currently on the minister's table right now for him to sign off and determine. Their thoughts are that perhaps they will allow current accredited employers to go to the front of the queue should they be needing to actually physically still apply for the new accreditation. Then they will give those employers the first option to do so. If they are not going to require the current accredited employers to apply under the new scheme, they may just allow that continuation, that rolling over, if you like, of their current accreditation, and then only need to apply for their new accreditation when the current accreditation expires. So yeah, sorry, I can't give a solid answer on that, but up to the minister at the moment as to what he's going to decide.
Yeah, policy has not been released yet. We have some fairly clear idea of what it's going to look like, hence how we can start the process, but policy is still on the minister's desk. Another question from Johanna, probably for you, Charlotte. If I have a staff on an essential skills visa, and that visa expires after the new accreditation becomes compulsory, will they lose their visa?
I guess if they don't apply for a new visa under the new policy, then yes, they would. So hence why it is a good reason to get their accreditation application in sooner rather than later. So that once your current employees visa does expire, you're already in a position to apply for a new one. Or what we have seen some employees and employers doing is if they know that they've got people with work visas or essential skills visas due to expire in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, they're actually renewing those now so that they can be guaranteed that that person gets another 3-year visa and that they're not going to have that pressure or stress on them of having to try and apply for a new visa under the new policy if their new accreditation hasn't come through yet.
Thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could become a bit of a problem if your staff on current visas have their visas expire and you're not accredited yet. They can't actually renew under the new scheme until you become accredited. So in their best interest, and in your best interest as an employer to ensure your business continuation or development, have a chat with your staff and see if maybe any of their current immigration status requires attention right now. So they can maybe secure another 3-year essential skills visa under current policy. A question from Kat here. Do labour hire companies need to provide additional evidence to support the application? I think you touched up on that, Charlotte, a little bit.
The assumption would be yes, just because obviously labour hire companies are hiring a lot more people than what a standard or premium employer is. So obviously you're hiring more than 5 people, well and truly. So it is likely that there will be additional information. What that looks like, we don't know. So until we really see that policy announced, we can't be 100% certain as to what that looks like. But it probably will be things, you know, a lot of the same evidence that we've already touched on, but you probably will have to really demonstrate, you know, what your need for migrants is and why is it so high. But you could also be potentially covered by a sector agreement. So yeah, there's all these little bits and pieces we're still waiting for the full picture on. And
Charlotte, you're probably the best person to answer that one as well. What about critical workers, people who have entered as critical workers? Are they going to be able to continue working once the new accreditation system is in place?
Yes, as long as they still obtain a visa. So at the moment, obviously, critical workers who are coming in on 6 to 12 month critical purpose visitor visas. However, once they're on shore, they can apply for either essential skills or work to residence. So the assumption moving forward would be that once an employer has their new accreditation, if they have those critical workers, then they would still apply for the new type of work visa.
Okay, fantastic. I have another question in the chat from Kat again. Why are labour hire companies considered high risk? I suppose the reasoning is because you're contracting people out, you're contracting out your employees, you have a bit less control over employment practices. And in the case of perhaps labour hire, but also franchisees, you have less control over costs, essentially. So the whole sustainability aspect of the business in Immigration New Zealand's perspective requires a bit more attention. Sweet, it's been 25 minutes. We're just about to wrap things up. Sarah, what would you say companies or employers should do now? How do you start the process? Do you get in touch with New Zealand Force? How do you do?
I just give us a call or an email and we can just have a 5-minute chat just over your company's requirements and I guess put some information to you into email so that when you are ready to start the process, you've got our details, you've got our services and costs all there. And just having that chat now, you know, is going to iron out any sort of sticky points that we can see if you haven't got a working relationship with WINZ, you know, Work and Income New Zealand, but you need to have one and demonstrate that over the last 3 months. There's a lot of things we can be putting in place now to make sure that when you do need to actually obtain that accreditation, there's not going to be any major issues. So yeah, give us a call or an email and we can have a chat and go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all attendees today as well. As we said, this is being recorded, so we'll send out a recording to all registrants. Thanks again for your time and catch up soon.